Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
My first guest was destined for the Atlanta Olympics in 1996. However, having just missed out on qualifying for the Games, Brian Crowley from TTM Healthcare has achieved phenomenal success in the recruitment industry. Brian, as I mentioned, you originally pursued a career in sport.
Yeah, Karl, my younger years, and I describe them now as 10 stone ago as opposed to 20 years ago, Karl, to be honest with you. But I was very lucky at younger years to have played underage hurling and football for Clare. I achieved much success. Actually, was more in the boxing ring. I was lucky enough to be a 6-time national boxing champion and a European bronze medalist at underage level. And went on, and unfortunately, Karl, and was broken-hearted, just missed out on the Atlanta Olympics in 1996.
And having missed out on that qualification for the 96 Olympics in Atlanta, was this the realisation that perhaps a professional sports career would not be for you?
Well, Karl, it's a fantastic question. It has given me an amazing foundation later in my career from a discipline perspective and from a resilience perspective. I don't for one moment regret the experience and the opportunities that were afforded to me to represent Ireland and indeed captain my country in boxing internationals and European and world championships right across the globe. And I've said this before, Karl, and it's not the self-deprecating Paddy that's in me, but I don't think I was good enough to be really good, Karl. And I mean that sincerely and genuinely. I was, when you go to a European or World Championships and you get a sense of the type of talent that's out there across the world, genuinely I don't think had the talent to be really good, which I really wanted to be. And actually I was speaking to somebody recently who asked me the same question and I had proffered maybe I was meant to do something else, Karl. And as the show goes on, hopefully that'll become more apparent. So
how did you begin to transition from the boxing ring to the boardroom?
Yeah, so after I graduated from Waterford, and I had 4 fantastic years in Waterford, Karl, a great city to live, a great city to study in. And I first of all went to London, where I worked in 2 jobs because I was paying off loans for the second 2 years in college, Karl, where I had a particularly good time. And I was working in the daytime in a company called TX UK, which actually ironically make the flight recorders, the black boxes for the airplanes. And then at night time I worked in Sky in the box office. So this is in the days, Karl, where you couldn't buy a movie from your remote control like you can now. Back then you had to call into a call centre. So I was doing the 8 o'clock at night to 1 o'clock in the morning shift. And the funniest part of that job, Karl, was 12 o'clock in the evening when the porn channels became live. So you can imagine some of the calls you were getting at that time to switch on particular types of channels. I was actually planning to go to Australia, which was probably my first significant sliding doors moment, where a friend of mine and myself were going to go to Australia. And a couple of things happened and meant I didn't go and he did. And ironically, Karl, he went on to go to Australia, got married and settled down over there. And instead I came back to Ireland and I began my career in recruitment with a one-man band in Enniston, County Clare, with a phenomenal entrepreneur, a really fantastic fella. And that, I suppose, I was lucky, Karl, that I didn't go into a large organisation. I didn't become a name on an Excel spreadsheet. I joined an SME, and there's something I think special about SMEs versus the multinationals, Karl. So I was lucky. I got exposure very quickly to lots of elements of a business by virtue of joining an SME.
And was it always your intention to start your own recruitment business?
No, Karl. It's ironic, this whole discussion and debate about entrepreneurship and are they born or are they made? And in my case, no, I hadn't any real aspiration. I mean, I would have also been ferociously ambitious, Karl, either through sport or in business. So that would have been present, but I had never any real desire initially to go out on my own. But to be honest with you, the trigger for me, Karl, was we grew that business actually from a one-man band to quite a successful recruitment company. And the focus of that business at the time, Karl, was during the successful shared service centre days in Ireland, where many of the European and the global multinationals were putting their headquarters in Ireland. So your Microsofts and your Compaq and your Siemens. So I spent my time with that company traveling around Europe recruiting multilingual staff to bring back into various shared service centres in Ireland. So we had a huge success, but the dot-bomb era in the 2001 period put pay to that particular business, and I had persuaded the MD at the time to look at healthcare, and it was just as we started to grow that, Karl, I felt I could do it better. I didn't like the direction that the business was going in. I was probably, part of that was probably naivety, Karl. I was 25 and I thought I could take over the world. But I made the decision just after ironically, my sister had her first child, Brian, my own godson. It was literally the day he was born. I was sitting outside in Galway in the hospital, and I just made the decision, I think it's time to go up my own, and I made the jump. And it's been a fantastic white-knuckle ride since, Karl, as you know, from the businesses you've scaled yourself.
Absolutely. Now, fast forward to today, and TTM Healthcare is a company which is reporting a turnover figure in excess of 65 million euros. Brian, how did you build a recruitment company that would enjoy this level of financial success?
Kind of 07-08 period, Karl, we were doing maybe 500,000-600,000 euros in sales, maybe 5 or 6 staff. By 2010, we brought the business to 14 million. So it was ferocious growth over that period of time. And what I had spotted, and we've had a couple of pivots over the last couple of years which have brought us to the 65 million mark. And that first pivot was when things were particularly tough and the credit crunch hit, I decided people were going to really struggle in relation to permanent staff, and they needed really flexible, nimble workforce solutions. So I focused on that, Karl, and that had huge success. We then pivoted again in the 2011-2012 period, where I decided, Karl, that we needed to move up the value chain. I'm very proud of my background in recruitment, but what I felt was that what was the difference between us providing the staff and us providing the service? We set up our resilience care business around the 2011 time. We also decided that we would look outside of Ireland, Karl. So and as a result, Karl, since that, if you look at our numbers last year, about 40% of our income came from outside of Ireland, and about 20% of our business has come from our healthcare company, Resilience. So in the space of 4 or 5 years, Karl, 60% of our business didn't exist 5-6 years ago.
Last year, Broadlake acquired a 30% share in TTM. Was this a difficult decision for you to relinquish some of the company's equity?
This is something I think that Irish organisations, particularly rapidly growing SMEs, seem to struggle with. And I have to admit, although something that required a significant amount of soul searching, I didn't find either the journey to the decision or indeed the journey to execute it difficult, because I felt that as we were growing there, organic growth is very tough. I mean, we've gone from, as I said, from 500k to 14 million to 30 to 40 to 65 and up into the BHAG, or the big, hairy, audacious goals of 100 million next year. So in order to continue to grow organically, you certainly have to have the right people and the right systems, but that can be supported by support in terms of capital, either for acquisition or for investment within the organisation itself. And I felt in the first instance we needed that support. The second thing is that it's a lonely journey. I've got some fantastic people around me, and Pete Smith, who's the chief executive of Broadlake, who's a spectacular fella. He shares my values and the values of the business, and he's been there and done that, and has scaled an organisation and has exited very successfully from that. So it was good to have somebody sitting across from the table, Karl, who can look into your soul. And at times, Karl, you can be commercially bipolar, Brian, are you doing a good job today? Oh, you are, Brian, fair play to you. But to be honest with you, when you have somebody who's very experienced sitting across the table from you, who's able to look into your soul, you're less able to be commercially bipolar, Karl. So they were the two main reasons for me. And, as a result, we're investing significantly this year and again next year, which should support the organic growth. So we certainly will look at acquisitive growth to support that growth, Karl, You're well on your way to achieving 100 million euros in turnover by next year. But will you be considering acquisitions as a possible way to achieve further growth? Absolutely, Karl. We're actually in that space today as we speak. So we're looking particularly at organisations across the water in the United Kingdom for our recruitment business. We've a fairly significant business over there, Karl. We've about 1 in 5 nurses entering the NHS from overseas comes through our company. So we have quite a significant organisation there, and we certainly would like to complement that with good, well-run, entrepreneurial-led organisations that fit our values over there. In our healthcare business also, Karl, we intend to acquire there also to support the growth in that part of our business. So, yeah, over the next year or two in particular, acquisitions will form a significant part of our growth.
And do you hold any aspirations to flow TTM in the UK or the Irish stock markets over the coming years?
Yeah, Karl, I have to admit, and you've definitely caught me on that one. I almost see the IPO as something that's going to make up for the last hurdle that I fell on en route to the Atlanta Olympics. Our private equity partners, Bodlick, are an amazing company. I'm not too sure how they would feel about that end result as an organisation. That's something we'll probably talk about. But I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that as an aspiration for me personally is that I'd love to bring the organisation to a stage where we could take it on an IPO journey and scale it further that way. So listen, it's an aspiration, Karl, and I'd have to bring people with me on that journey. But I'd be lying if I didn't tell you it's certainly something that's out there in the bucket list that I'd love to achieve.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.